together so they can try things. Young about Intense podcast so that you can try things. Now we will stop singing so that we can all now try this.
Well, Marcus, I think it's time for us to get to today's challenge that you have given me called The Nice House on the Lake.
The Nice House
There's
on the
a nice
lake.
house on the
Ooh,
lake.
okay. Theme song.
And you might die a bad fate because there's no spoilers for this new kind of comic by DC Black Label. Just call it Vertigo.
I was enjoying that. That was great.
That was my jam for you.
Nice beachy tune.
Well, no, we needed more music in the
Yeah,
pod.
no, I agree.
People haven't been complaining we need to stop singing enough, you know, so
Yeah, let's
need to,
bring
like-
that complaint back. What was that?
I
A
think so.
4-star. Our first 4-star review was.
we were getting engagement. I'm just saying. Love you or hate you, you just got to get the engagement, right?
Yeah, that's
Tell your
fair.
friends.
Okay, so Nice House on the Lake was written by James. I don't know how to say his name, but I'm going to say James Tynion. I've heard Tynan and Tynan.
The fourth.
The fourth. He is best known for Batman. He wrote a lot of Batman.
I read some of it,
also
yeah.
writes Department of Truth, which sounds really good, and I kind of want to read. And Something is Killing Children, which I bought the first volume of, and I haven't read yet, but I do also want to read that.
Yeah,
Department of Truth. Do you know what that one's about?
No.
It's
What's
like a big conspiracy theory comic book, and I think like if people believe it enough, it becomes real, kind of thing. So the Department of Truth has to like investigate the truths that were created by people believing in them, kind of thing. Something like that. But it sounds like a good time. I actually heard about this just by looking up horror things, because I'm always like looking up horror things to read. And I saw Nice House on the Lake. I was like, that is an absolutely captivating cover. It's a woman as though she's swimming in the lake, and there's a bunch of skulls around it. It's beautiful, beautiful cover.
It's a very beautiful cover.
And it caught my eye immediately. I was like, that looks like my jam. Whatever that is, I want to read it. You know, you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but ask anybody, and I often buy books because of the cover. But it looked great. So then not the same day, but that was in my wish list for a while. And then later on, I listened to a podcast called The Last Podcast on the Left.
You've mentioned them before.
I've
Rivals
mentioned
of the
them a lot.
show.
I've mentioned them a lot. Free advertising. And they did an interview with James Tynion because I think he was, I don't remember exactly, but I think he was following around Bigfoot conspiracy theorists and writing a book kind of about like what it is to be a Bigfoot conspiracy theorist. But he mentioned that he seemed like a cool, fun guy. I really enjoyed listening to his work. He helped the Last Podcast guys with their comic book, and they seem to be friends because he's also like in New York City. And so I was like, well, I like this guy and I already have his book in my wish list. Let me go and read it. I read it and I was immediately hooked. I was like, I need to continue this after reading the first issue because the premise was really cool, really unique, and seemed like it was going to be a fun ride.
I will try to give 2-sentence hook to get you to read this comic, and then this will be a complete spoiler episode. The Nice House on the Lake is what would happen if a group of friends that had not been around each other a lot because of circumstance went away for a lake weekend and the worst possible thing ever happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'll let your mind wander, and now it's a spoiler episode.
Okay.
Come join the fun.
So now that we're in the spoiler section, basically what happens is a bunch of friends gather on a lake. They're invited by their friend Walter.
Mm-hmm.
And then while they're there at the lake house retreat, the world ends.
The apocalypse happens.
The apocalypse happens. They all witness it. They all start freaking out, but nothing is happening on the lake. And they realize that Walter, somehow, some way, they do not know yet, is responsible.
And I think you made sure I didn't read anything before this, and I think it's totally worth it, because that moment when I'm reading it, I know something's gonna happen.
Sure.
And to be fair, I don't think James Tynion cared about keeping it a secret, because he foreshadows it all out in the first 3 pages. Yeah. He's like, then you meet Walter, and he's talking to this girl who he just met, and he's like, how do you think the world's gonna end? And they're like talking about it and texting about it. So it's like, oh, okay, so the world's gonna end. Got it. Yeah. Cool. Immediately, as all these people are showing up, I get Glass Onion vibes. I'm like, oh, so this is Glass Onion, right? There's a whole bunch of
Before Glass
specific
Onion?
people that were sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's parallel thinking,
Okay.
dude. That happens all the time.
100%.
They were probably written at the same time. But the premise of a whole group of old friends gathering on an island or at a lake house, like it just had the same kind of vibe where I think honestly it's just a compliment to James Tynion, because I think Ryan Johnson's a fantastic writer, where they both have that like those characters where they're almost a little too quippy to be real people, but the reason they're so quippy is so you can get their personality in a really nice bite-sized dump, so that you can enjoy the movie and or comic. So like I forgive it right away. But these people are all very quippy people. Like,
I think if this were a movie, I would keep the quippiness and the like, this one line's gonna give you all of my personality. I would keep all that. But if this were a TV series, I would like it dulled out over a longer period of time.
If this was a movie, you would want to keep the heightened reality, but the reason you would make this a series, a 10 episode, 12 episode miniseries or whatever, is so you can ground it just a little more than it's grounded. Because it does a good job grounding itself with how many crazy things happen. But there has to be this heightenedness to it, because there's only, 20 pages in each comic or whatever it is.
What did you think about the art style going into it?
God,
I feel like
I hated it so much.
The first couple pages grab you, I think.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it's beautiful. Here's the thing about this comic. It's like so. Let me finish. It's beautiful, right? The art is clearly like a take. It matches the vibe. It like looks how this world should look. Walter and his aesthetic is like really great. I love the anime villain glasses the whole time.
Oh,
love that choice. The architecture and like the layout of everything and the symbols and everything. I'm a sucker for all that stuff. It is all thought out and gorgeous. When you have a comic that is this stylized with this many characters, if I don't have a reference, I am a little like, I hate when a comic book or something does the thing where I need to go back to the beginning
to look at who everybody is.
Multiple pages, be like, who's Ronnie? Who is this?
That is my one complaint about this comic book, is that I kept having to go back and be like, okay, which one is this one? Is this the accountant? Is this what was this person's job? Like, because that was important. It's on the cover of every issue.
They're all labeled with their personality, their roles.
Multiple times. And it was like, okay, but it takes a while for that to set in. But by the time that kind of sets in, you're like towards the end of the comic book. And it's like, okay, I finally got a hang of who everybody is.
And then when you finally start getting a hang of it is when they give you the character art and the character description of all the people in the back. They didn't get it till issue like 10. And I'm like, why wasn't this in issue 1?
Yeah, I needed a character reference in like issue 1 of who everybody was and their roles.
But to be fair, like as much as that is a criticism, they do a wonderful job making all these people very distinct. Very, it felt like the real world where everyone came from a different walk of life. We had different sexual orientations and races and genders. And it was like off the gambit. Like you can tell all these, like Tinian's like Bible of all these characters was really thought out. Like all these people have such personality. It's just with this art style, the like water brushy kind of like flowy way you do it, it adds to the mystique, it adds to the vibe, it adds to the tension. But I'm just like, is that one brown haired girl, or is that the other brown? Which brown? Were you the architect, or were you the math were you who did you fuck? Which one did you?
Is your husband?
Who did you come with?
Are you? Did they die? Like there was a lot of me.
Having I would have loved one of those family tree things. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like this connection. This is he's friends with her, and they're friends with this person. That would have been real nice.
No, 100%. I needed like a fantasy novel, like family tree, but of their friendships and how they knew each other, because they were like the college cluster, the high school cluster. And I was like,
and they said it like it was there, but I had to keep referencing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the truth is, if they changed the art style to be easier to distinguish that, then you would have lost something, because the mystique of the art is really what I think adds something to this. Like you
Yeah.
can tell the artist was heavily involved.
Yeah, no. The artist
I don't think you
Alvaro
mentioned him.
Martinez Bueno and the
Yes.
colorist Jordi Belair.
Yeah, they did a wonderful job. You know,
Mhm.
I think I just needed that family tree thing or the character
100%.
thing
Just
earlier. That's
give me
it.
that thing that you did. They know we needed it because they did it on
They
like
made
issue 11.
Yeah.
Just give it to issue 1 and it would
Yeah.
be perfect.
Yeah, and then they could have did a fun thing with it where as people were coming and going and changing, they could have like changed it, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever.
I wonder if it was a response to like criticism because like
Oh, maybe.
maybe by the
A little
time they
too
were able
late.
to by the time they were able to do it, they're like, okay, I guess we'll do something about it.
Honestly, by issue 10 or 11, that's probably when the first graphic novel of the first 6 issues probably came out. So that's probably
Yeah.
when they're like, oh, people are
Yeah.
like, cool.
Yeah.
Because this seems like something people probably mostly bought in trade. That's how I got it. That's,
Mhm.
you know, month to month. This doesn't seem like the kind of read that I would have enjoyed. I would have really
Fair
much
enough.
liked this as a graphic novel.
I
'cause
would have
it's-
picked it up month to month. I think there's enough to draw me in, but I also do like this kind of stuff.
Well, the problem with it is there's just so many comics that have a good start. You know what I mean?
I
That
will read the
never-
first like 3 issues of 1,000 comic books and then never pick them up again.
Yeah. So
And-
like this is
they have
definitely
good
something I wanna pick
premises,
up.
but they don't have a good follow through. I think this was
Yeah.
perfect. I think the 12 issues that you got, I think were great. And even if you never read more after that, I think that's fine because it's still like good.
Agreed. So right away, what drew me to this comic is like as I'm reading James Tinian's, like he went to Sarah Lawrence for creative writing. He studied under Scott Snyder. He's been making comics. This is a TV show.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
structurally, the way he did it, how every beginning of an episode focuses on another character, and then like that character is who we're following in that issue / episode. Like
Mhm.
it's written so well. Like the pacing and the follow through of why someone and when someone and like how it all plays out is so well thought out. It's
Yeah.
so impressive.
Yeah. No, he's a great writer. And I think that this comic book shows it, but also the fact that he was able to stay on Batman for as long as he did. Like,
Yeah.
that is just an impressive thing. Batman is DC's top selling comic book. If you do not perform well on Batman, they fire you immediately. Like,
Yeah.
they will kick you off of that comic book because it's the one they have to sell the most of.
Yeah, it looks like he was on it for 9 years.
Yeah, something like that. It was like a long,
That's
good run.
crazy. There's
I-
like little blips where he's not there,
Yes.
probably for events and stuff. But
Yeah.
like for 9 years, he was doing Batmans
Mhm.
from 2012 when I think I remember now. He took over right after Scott Snyder's
Scott Snyder. Yes.
Court of the Owls. He
Which is
did his first, which is the
also
new 52.
A hard
Yeah.
job because Scott Snyder's Court of Owls, that whole beginning of the New 52, Batman was one of the only good comic books that was coming out
It
after
was.
the New
Everyone
52.
loved it.
Yeah,
Everyone loved it. Yeah.
And so to pick up after Scott Snyder, who was killing it, is great. It was a hard thing to do, and he did it.
Is the Batman Who Laughs the first that came out with that whole thing? The Batman Who Laughs? Was he instrumental in that? Because he wrote a lot of it.
I do not know.
He wrote a lot of the Dark Knight, dark death metal things. I'm just looking at his
That makes sense.
thing here. Crazy, a lot of stuff.
But he's an incredible writer, and I think that this proves it. And I would love to see an adaptation for this. I think comic books are a field of or genre or a medium that I don't want to say it's untapped because it's been tapped, right? But the other stuff, right? Like we're finally getting Marvel and DC, and now that's becoming oversaturated. But there's so much non-Marvel DC stuff. Granted, this is technically DC, but like there's non-superhero stuff out there that is really, really good. And still, I don't think people would get tired of. People wouldn't even really like know it came from a comic book that you can make TV shows out of. That I think is great.
I think you hit it on the head. I think when producers and venture capitalists and all these people try to make a comic book movie, they're trying to make a comic book movie. They like we've gotten
Mhm.
lots of movies that were from random stuff that people would never know, but they treated them like comic book movies. This comic we just read, The Nice House on the Lake, should be treated like a spec script. Like
Yeah.
it is just like just treat
Yeah.
it like it's a script. Don't be like, "Hi, it's a comic book and let's
Yeah.
try to make it into
like-
a comic book."
To Perdition. Did you watch that movie?
Great example. That's a comic book, yeah.
That's a comic movie that I don't think they were like, let's make a comic book movie, right?
No.
And it came out great. It was a great movie. entertaining, and you wouldn't have known it came from a comic book.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things like Lock and Key suffered from, where it felt like
Yeah.
they were trying to make a comic book thing. Whereas like that was a horror thing. That should have been a horror thing. It should have felt like that. It should have felt like a Stephen King-esque, freaking
Yes.
Carrie kind of like thing. But they were like, oh, we're making a comic book thing for a comic book show.
That's what I get most upset about with Marvel and DC, I guess, and their movies. It's when we were originally pitched Marvel, it was like we were told by Kevin Feige that we're going to explore the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're going to get horror. We're going to get sci-fi. We're going to get this. And we're not getting any of that. What we're getting is comic book / sci-fi in small font. Comic book / whatever Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was in small font.
I love Doctor Strange more than most people. So I understand.
Sure.
I think Moon Knight's a perfect example, right? Moon Knight feels like it needed to be, they like made it more Marvel-y.
Yes.
When they could have just made it bonkers, else. Crazy, something.
Yes. There's so many things where it's like, it needs to be horror first. It needs to be XYZ first, and then it can be a comic book thing. Like the comic book part of it doesn't matter. It's a story, and you can just adapt the story in any way you want. It doesn't have to be superhero action thing.
Agreed. The Sandman show, I felt that felt like comic booky. Like I was so disappointed in that. I didn't even finish
watching
it.
That.
I stopped watching after episode 4. No, and it's my favorite thing. It's my number one. It's my number one.
I didn't know that.
After the hell battle, I was just like,
That's where I stopped watching also.
It was so like I couldn't watch it before bed because it was too tiring, and then it was like too boring to watch like during the day. Like it lost all, and it wasn't a knock on anyone involved. Neil Gaiman was heavily involved. All the actors were doing a good job. It was well written. It was like cool. It's just something about it didn't feel real enough. It didn't feel something. And I think it's what we're talking about. I think it felt a little comic booky. Like it was like, let's make a comic book thing,
100%. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. But I think they did a good job. They did their best, but it was comic booky. So this is perfect. Revival's another one that I was reading that I really enjoyed, but I kind of fell off of, but I think would make a good TV show.
Oh, Marcus, I think, didn't they turn that into it?
Oh my God, did they turn it into a TV show?
Revival, comic,
TV show? They might have.
TV show. I swear they did.
I thought they were doing it and then they didn't.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of then. You're right. Okay, I don't see it. I liked Revival for a minute, but I fell off. Oh, wait, no. Exclusive teaser trailer for Revival, the movie based on
the
movie,
but it never came out?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Did it not come out? I'm literally watching the teaser.
Yeah.
Did it not? Production was slated to begin in 2018.
And then
it just stops talking about it.
Yeah.
Weird.
It might come out later, but that was one that I enjoyed and I thought would make a good movie, but I didn't hear anything about it. But yeah, no, Nice House on the Lake is perfect for that.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, what's crazy is I know I'm not the first one to bring up this comparison, and I'm sure you're going to be like, of course, is like, you know what it feels like? It feels like Lost, right? Like mystery boxes, cast of characters trying to figure each other out on a weird place, trying to figure out what's going on. Why are they trapped? It definitely has that Lost feel to it.
Yeah.
Whereas, to be fair, Lost ran off the rails because of how long it lasted. I didn't even watch that all the show.
I watched all
season.
Of it.
I watched the first season because I had that on DVD, and then I didn't buy the next DVD.
I had a lot of fun watching Lost. I feel like if it lost its way, but I had a good time.
Most things do. Well, most things do. But what Lost didn't do, and this does do, is Lost was a TV show, right? It was a network TV show at the end of the day, and some of it felt like a network TV show, right? Like some characters would grow and then they would be back because they needed them in that. That's what a network TV show has to do. Whereas this, really took its time. Like, just for example, there was that one issue that started with a character that I had known nothing about yet, which was the comedian guy, Derek, I think.
Yeah.
Is it Derek?
David?
I have the thing right here. It's the comedian David Day. You're right.
There you go.
And I was like, I don't know anything about him. Cool. But then we had a whole issue that really went into him about how like
Mhm.
he was actually smart, but like
Yeah.
and it might be corny, and honestly in a TV show it might come off that way, but like there was a thing where he was talking to everyone, he was getting like mailman costumes in their deliveries
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
having a good time, but he was also like the only one asking any questions, and then he gathered all this information and brought it to the group, and I'm like, this guy's the only one that knows what's up.
Yeah. That was a really great issue of the comic book. I think
Great
when
issue.
David, I love a goofball who is actually smart and knows what's going on. Like that is my
Yeah.
favorite kind of character in something. It's like, yes, you're silly because obviously it's like a defense mechanism, but like you are not letting your guard down. You know what's up. You know what's going on around you. And because people don't take you seriously, you can notice more than most people realize you're noticing.
Yeah, and because of the structure of the comic book, we don't really get another moment like that with David. But now that we've gotten that moment with David, everything afterwards is colored by our knowledge of David,
Mhm.
which is again such a smart way of doing it by having every issue focus on a person. You know, and you know, if we're being like super critical, I think there's some that were a little more successful than others. I think some still made in the background. You have a cast of like 12 people. It's very hard.
Yeah.
But everything else is colored and peppered by all those things we're learning about them, right?
Yeah.
Like the craziness of the pianist guy, Rick,
Mhm.
like his like deterioration, the way he like, and it's like a very subtle one. It's like
Yeah, for
he's
sure.
like deteriorates into madness because of how complacent he is, right?
Mhm.
Or like how he wants to please Walter. And that's like right from the beginning, and it's like sprinkled all the way through. It really colors this book like as all these other crazy things are. It leaves room for these crazy, almost avant-garde, surrealist things to come, right? Because
Yeah.
we don't know what Walter is,
Yeah. We
we
don't know what
where he
Walter
comes
is.
from.
We don't know where he comes from. And
but it's
I
not what it's
think
about.
it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right? Like we're not trying to investigate like, oh, which planet is he from so we can figure out his weakness. We don't get a long exposition dump about like his background or whatever. It is like it doesn't matter. It's about the situation that they're in and
Mhm.
how you would react as a human.
He literally says like you couldn't understand.
Yeah.
I can't explain it to you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
I
cool.
do I mean, it's a big suspension of disbelief is when the world ends and immediately was it Nora was like
Mhm.
you did this. I'm like, okay.
Ryan, you mean?
Oh, someone. No,
Oh, Nora?
I think it was
The
Nora.
writer?
Someone got their arm chopped off in the
That was
beginning.
Nora.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nora. So Nora and then attacked Walter and Walter just went "Poof," and chopped off the arm.
Uh-huh.
My
she attacked
suspension
him
of
with the-
disbelief was more so about the fact that it was like, I don't know if I would have pieced that together. Like if you were like always talking about the apocalypse and then the world ended and we were in a room together, I wouldn't turn to you like, Nick, what have you done?
But someone would.
But someone would.
Someone would. And I also think it was the piling
that's
on
my
from
only
Ryan,
thing.
right? Because Ryan was like a big accusatory kind of thing that happened there.
Oh, Darren makes a good point. It was living in her subconscious because we do find out later that she did know the whole time about
All
what
of
was
it.
going on, about all of
Yeah.
it. Interesting.
Super interesting. Usually, I think a great example is Nick Spencer's Morning Glory. I think I made you read that for a minute. I was like keeping
I
up
read
with
a few
that.
issues.
It was like coming out, and it was like all these mystery boxes and like all these things you gotta like. But I very much stopped reading that comic, Marcus,
Mhm.
and I very much bought the omnibus to go read it later. And guess what? Sold that omnibus without ever finishing it
Wow.
because just like if you set up too many things without paying anything off,
Yeah.
you never. But this comic pays stuff off.
Hey,
Like,
someone
it
pretty
sets
quickly
stuff up.
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It lets you in. You know what? I'm going to compare it to Glass Onion again. What Ryan Johnson does is he doesn't want you guessing the whole time. He puts it all up front to let you be along for the ride. And this comic does that, right? They get into that black house with Reg pretty quickly. And then he wipes the slate clean of everybody again.
Mhm.
But we still know what's going on.
Exactly.
But the characters don't.
Yeah.
And he does that a couple times.
Yeah. The ability to wipe the people's memory is wild because it creates this weird, interesting dynamic between yourself, the reader, and the characters because you're like almost observing them like animals in a zoo, and you are watching, and you know things that they don't know.
Yeah, I can't recall anything that does that or does this well off the top of my head because it's a very interesting, it's a very risky thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my biggest complaint about that Captain Marvel film all the time, right, is like, how are we supposed to relate to Captain Marvel when she doesn't know anything? Right? The whole movie, she's got amnesia. So that whole movie, I don't know what to care about because she doesn't know. And I'm like, I want to latch onto her character. I want to love her character, but she doesn't have a character yet, right? It's like a dangerous thing to mess with like mind stuff but wipe it all.
It is,
like,
it is difficult to do correctly, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, also there's just like, it builds tension because you know things that the characters don't. So you're seeing them go through the motions again, trying to figure out the same things that you know that they've already figured out. And you're like, get there, you could do it, get there. But this time it's like there's a different tension because before there was tension because you both didn't know what was going on. Now you know what's going on, but you want them to find out, which is just really interesting writing.
It's a little like Inception, like that, like going back into it. It's also a little bit like the resetting of Walter feels a little bit like The Good Place, right? Where it's like they're in like they're in hell and they have to keep resetting it. This place, they're in this place, and he keeps resetting it. Has the same kind of mystique to it, except horror and not comedy. You know? But it really worked.
Yeah. Okay, Nick. Now we are back. We are talking the nice house on the lake. I feel like a successful horror thing should be formatted in the blank on the blank. You know? Last house on the left. Nice house on the lake. Big kitchen in my house. I would watch the horror movie.
That sounds very scary. Something I want to really shout out is we were just talking pre-podcast the other day about how transgendered characters and the trans community is portrayed almost in a just in a bad way in a lot of different media. I was just talking about that musical we were talking about the other day. But this is one of the first times I like read something or seen something where it didn't feel tropey, it didn't feel shoehorned in, it didn't feel obligatory, it didn't feel tokenized. The character of Nora just happened to be trans and they just were.
Yeah.
Like, but it was but also it's more than that, right? Because it also was the character, but wasn't all of the character. I feel like that's the thing that most people miss, right?
That is the thing. Yeah. Being trans is a huge part of your life, but it is not the only thing you are.
Yeah. So they either like ignore anything. They either ignore it or it's just that's all the character is. But Nora like had all these faults and all these intrinsicacies. I can never say that word. But at the end of the day, like a huge part of their character was talking about how they felt Walter wanted to control her in a certain way and control who she was going to become. And there's this great moment where she said, when she was like lost in the darkness and there was like her inner monologue, and she said, it must have hurt him so much that the biggest thing about me was something he didn't know or he had no control over. Right. And this whole concept of control and everything that's happening in the comic with that, like underneath it all, just felt really like empowering. It felt really nice to see. It felt really nice to read. Yeah. You know, and it was it's really nice when I'm able to step up my feet into someone else's shoes because of how well something is made, right? Yeah. Like you can relate to to Nora. I related to Nora so much, and I have nothing in common with this aspect of this character, but I felt it. I felt it there in the moment, there in the writing. It was so nice to see. Yeah. To read.
No, I agree entirely. I think that when you have moments where you can relate to these characters because they're going through something, even though it's not something that you necessarily went through, but a hardship is a hardship, and you can relate to that at least.
Yeah, 100%. When it's that real, when it's that honest, when it's that it's the pathos of it. I can't even describe it. It was just so good.
Yeah, no, I really like those moments. I think that James Tynion did a great job of kind of boiling down certain characters to like several lines, because each issue individually focuses on a different character, and in the 20-30 pages you get plot development, but also a good sense of who these people are.
Yeah. Yeah, and then every time they all make, because this comic is it's precipitated on Participated with what the hell's the word? Doesn't matter. It's all falling on that one aspect of these characters need to make choices, right?
Yeah.
The reason this is interesting in this scenario and why we watch it or read it is because we want to see what people would do in this scenario, right? Like
Yeah.
we want to be able to talk about it after. What would we do in the zombie
Mhm.
apocalypse? How would we handle this? What would we do?
Yeah.
And when you have characters that are so well written, it's compelling. It feels justified. Like
Yeah.
when Rick is about to go kill Ryan, that feels in line with everything we've seen of his
Mhm.
character. When we find out how Nora was involved by the end, it feels right in line with the whole character. You know, when how Reg responds in those last moments, having helped design the whole thing and helping try to fix it, it's in line with everything he's done up to
Yeah.
that moment. It's just like makes pitch perfect sense.
Yeah, they established these characters early, and I don't think that any of these characters ever betrayed themselves or betrayed what was kind of written about their personalities. Even though they
Yeah.
grew, you know, I felt like he established early on who these people were, and it worked out really well.
Only a couple like little things is I wish the doctor had a little more to do.
Sure,
reporter,
yeah. I
Sam,
wish the whole thing was
you know,
longer, but
Yeah, I guess so.
You
But
can't do that.
the pacing was great, right?
pacing was good.
Like
But-
it would have messed with the pacing.
I think I would like this to be sort of like a couple of seasons. Like I think that this could have been. I don't even think it could have been a longer comic book because like 12 issues of a no-name, nothing comic book is hard to do. Hard to get companies to get the permission to write this stuff. Like I don't know. You don't see this stuff all the time. Image Comics does it a lot, but like under DC, like DC has their Black Label that they're trying, but they have been kind of like cutting a lot of these stories short, canceling them or forcing people to end them early. I don't know. It's just kind of like it's sometimes hard to get a non-superhero-ish comic book out there and write it for a long time, longer than 12 issues. So I imagine that he was working with what he had to work with.
Marcus, do you think it's over?
No, I don't think it's over. It's definitely continuing, but it's not right now. There's no there's plans to continue, but nothing in the works.
Oh, that's so disappointing because
Yeah.
the way it ends, like in that last moment, and you're reading the last issue and the last moments of the comic, and you're reading it all come together, and it's really nice the way it wraps up. Walter just says like a couple, like 2 or 3 lines. Honestly, I
Yeah.
might even just find it. And then at the very last moment of the comic, which was one of my favorite parts, was it just said end of cycle 1.
Yeah.
And
Which
you're
is-
just like, holy shit.
It leads you to believe that there's more, but
Like this is the first
exactly
part of the experiment.
as a
the
comic
first,
book
like-
reader, though. You and I know that if those numbers aren't numbering, then there won't be a cycle 2.
Well, here's what it says. Like, here's Walter and he's inner monologuing at the end, and you think maybe from
Yeah.
death, but it's not, because he explains those were the early days, the easy days. It took them only a few months to make peace with building a life at the house. It would take longer for them to realize they would need to fight to keep it.
100%.
End of cycle 1. And then you finally also realize that the beginning of all these chapters is something we haven't seen yet.
100%. Yeah.
The beginning, which is we've talked about a little bit, but the beginning of all these chapters, which is all these characters like just talking testimonial style, which was like a great convention.
Mhm.
Like that works really well in comics. It can work in TV. It's
Yeah.
been done badly, but like it's all of them in like apocalypse gear.
Yes.
Like longer hair. Honestly, to a point where I couldn't recognize some of them. It was really asinine because I was like, who's talking right now?
But eventually they immediately go back and you see who that person is, even if you
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
recognize them. Yeah.
Well, no, but then sometimes they gave them different colored hair again. And
That's
I was
fair.
like, wait, I thought I knew who this was. Cool that they changed them. I
Mhm.
think if they turn this into a V show, you'll be able to see
Yeah.
it'll be Nick Kroll or whoever it is, like
Yeah.
as the person. But I assume, like I assume the same things you probably assume, which is, when Walter mentioned there's other habitats that
Yeah, we were
they're
going to see
gonna
that or
they're
something.
gonna Beyonder style pit them
Yeah.
against each other,
Yeah.
right? Or something.
Well, I was thinking that like
Oh, you think something different? Please.
they
tell me.
might try to escape and find the other habitats maybe and like see if they can communicate with the other people that are out there before it's too late, and maybe try to gather enough people to start some kind of rebellion.
Oh, you know what this is a lot like, which we loved? Promise Neverland.
Promise, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Promise
It's like a
Neverland
little farm
sucked
community
ass
thing.
if you continued reading it, but It was
liked
a
it.
great premise. You read the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It took a dip. It wasn't the same comic. It was
Okay.
not the same mystery horror
yeah.
thing. It was just an adventure-y, shonen-y kind of thing
It
eventually.
became an adventure shonen, and it was like, that's not why I
I
started
still
reading
liked it.
this.
I still liked it because I love the characters. But you're right. It did take some dips. I was like, what?
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you found out at the end of that comic, spoilers for Promised Neverland, that the world it didn't end.
Yes.
Right? Like they were able to go like back and live in it. And then I wonder if something like that's happening here. Crazy.
I wonder
if we were ever asked to ask James Tinian, I would love to see if he's read that comic.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I think that something like that would be fun, even if they're just trying to survive in their own pod.
That would be fun.
There's a lot of fun.
Maybe they're
places for this to go.
apocalyptic because they go to war against each other.
Yeah,
that's also interesting.
Yeah. But
maybe they get invaded.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that they go. Maybe they get it comes. To them.
But if you're listening to this podcast, go buy the comic book. Go buy everything. You support this creator.
Yes.
Support comic books, because I won't be able to finish this story if no one buys it.
There has to have been. I guess not, because this is like brand new.
Yeah,
it's just come out. It's 1 year old. It finished now, right?
Yeah, even the second graphic novel, I think, it
just came out.
Yeah,
just came out. So there haven't been word, but like, how could this not be on Netflix or HBO?
Yeah. Especially if this gets a movie deal. Ooh,
HBO.
Ooh, we're gonna get more.
No, miniseries. We want like White Lotus. Like we want like a miniseries, right?
I don't know. I like The Last of Us. For me, it's too short. I think it needed like 1 or 2 more episodes for me to feel in the TV show similarly to what I felt in the game. But everyone else on the planet likes it, and they felt the things that they were supposed to feel when they were supposed to feel them. So I might be wrong.
I just also know that when you have a TV episode, I think you have multiple episodes. It's just sometimes like you take something like Daredevil, where like they made it 12 episodes and like 3 of those episodes didn't need to be there. It messed up with the pacing.
I would say
whatever it needs.
Give me, this could all be maybe you're right. Maybe a mini series.
12 episodes.
12 episodes. Yeah. But they need to be like hour-long episodes. Yeah.
If they need to be.
Yeah.
If they don't need to be, don't make them that.
Yeah. I just want a little bit extra. Like, I feel like when you adapt,
you want more.
Yeah. Like with The Last of Us 2, like they give us episodes that were not in the video game that elaborated in minutes feel a lot of shit, Like, I want more. I want extra stuff.
That's so hard because usually when we get extra stuff, it's bad though, right?
I think the extra stuff is different, right? The extra stuff I'm talking about I want like, give me the equivalent of like, in total, I don't want all the extra stuff in one shot. I want like 3 minutes here, 5 minutes here, whatever. Like 1 extra page in this issue, 1 extra page in that issue. That
conversation
kind of
between
extra.
2 characters that were off to the side that we didn't know what they were doing.
That's all I'm saying. So in total, maybe like 1 extra episode or something like that. But
well, no, you make them all like, you can get an issue done in 30 minutes. I bet. Just make it 45 or whatever.
That's true. Exactly.
I understand what you're saying.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm hesitant to agree with you 100%
you don't trust the writers.
I don't trust the writers. I don't trust networks. We've gotten so many things that have been adaptations, and usually when they add stuff, it's bad.
That's true.
Unless you make it your own thing, like a Marvel movie, right? Like some of the Marvel movies are great. Like No Way Home is a great movie.
Yeah.
It's its own thing. It's not adapting
Or James Tinian works on the thing. Because Neil Druckmann's working on the Last of Us TV show.
And that is really working.
Why that worked really well.
That's why I said HBO. I feel like that's the only chance he would have to go,
Yeah.
Like every other place, they just kind of make it. They're starting to learn that. Like they brought
Prime
Neil Gaiman for Sandman.
Yeah.
They brought him for Last of Us. I think they're starting to learn those lessons.
I think Amazon Prime
slowly but surely
is doing great with Invincible, The Boys, and
Vox Machina. Those are all great.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
And The Boys is a great example of like,
doing it better.
Be faithful. Do it better.
Do it better.
Do it better. Yeah. Well, amazing. We've talked about the ending. We've talked about the characters. Is there anything else
who was your favorite character? Who was kind of like, who were you liking?
Gosh, that's such a hard question because everyone was so interesting and unique, right? Like I loved the Ryan of it all. How it was just a stupid mistake that she was there. I loved the one that ended up being the orchestrator of everything. She was fantastic. I loved Reg, he was so interesting. I love the class clown guy.
Yeah.
The pianist.
I do want to talk about two moments, I guess. I want to talk about
No,
David
please.
with Molly, and I want to talk about sort of like when Naya, is that her name?
That's
The
when that
doctor died. Yeah. I feel like those are two big moments that like we could talk about briefly at least, and talk about like circumstances surrounding them. I feel like the David issue, for me, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but it was really like beautiful, and I think sold me on the entirety of the comic
Oh.
book.
Molly's the one that wanted to end things.
Yes. So she
Yes,
was
yes,
tired
that
of
was
living
really
in the
great.
house. She kept trying to order a razor, and
Mhm.
she wasn't allowed to order one. So
Mm-hmm.
David is like silly, goofy guy, whatever, and he sees her struggling and he tries to help in his own way. And that's
Yeah.
kind of when they discover that they can't die, which I thought,
Wow, which means
beautiful
she did
issue.
it, right?
No,
but
I
David
think
was
he
the one
did
with
it.
Blood.
He did it. Yeah,
He
yeah.
did it to himself.
He did it to himself to be like, look,
Oh, because he already knew they couldn't die?
maybe. I think he had a suspicion.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I was getting.
Even sadder if that wasn't his suspicion. He was like, let's
Yeah.
go together. It really, yeah, great. You're right. So well done. So
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, for
You know?
me, that was kind of like, this is definitely something that I am impressed by, because I liked it
Yeah.
just based on premise. And I would have kept reading just because it was a fun premise. But that issue was like, this is great writing, and I'm enjoying this.
He has a handle on the human condition, unlike
Yes.
most things you read.
Yeah. And the other one that I want to talk about was that moment where we know as viewers that they've lost their memories, but
You mean lost
They-
their healing power?
but yeah, no, well, they lost their
Gained
memories.
their
They didn't
memories.
lose their healing power yet. But they're
okay,
on the like docks,
Mhm.
playing with a gun, going through a similar scene that we saw play out earlier, where
sure.
they were like, we can't die, we can't die, we can't die. Except this time, we're also seeing the fact that someone is at the controls about to make them lose their healing power, and they're playing off of that tension. And I think that like a lot of times in media, especially comic books, I feel like it's hard to build tension in that way. It takes like sophisticated panel usage. It takes good writing. There's a lot of layers to it that really worked for me. And I thought he did a great job. And I felt very tense in that moment in a way that I don't feel tense a lot of times when I'm reading comic books.
Agreed. It was great. And yeah, I have nothing more. Who was your favorite character?
I don't know. I feel like I liked David in that one issue a lot, and then all the
They
other
all had their
issues I
moments. It's
stopped
hard,
kind of
right?
caring about him. I feel like
Yeah.
Reggie was probably the best. Overall, I like that he had that sense of betrayal. He had that kind of arc where he was like, I helped orchestrate all of this. I feel responsible, and Walter is a bad person that we need to get rid of. I liked him a lot.
Sure. I think I like Nora the best, the writer.
Nora
I
was
think-
good.
I think
Nora
she
was
my
very
favorite.
compelling. Darren asked about casting ideas.
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about this at all.
Okay.
You have
Quick.
any thoughts?
Let's see. Walter, I don't know any actors' names. And
Walter's-
also, we're getting at that age where a lot of the actors I know are old. Are old people now.
Yeah.
They can't play like young 20-something, 30-somethings on a beach. I feel like
I mean,
now my answers should be like Timothy Chalamet and like Chris Evans as David. Or no, that's not good.
No, but Chris Evans could be Rick. 100%.
The cast of
Rick-
Stranger Things.
No, but I mean the problem is that also works, right? Like Chris Evans
Yeah.
could totally, I think, be the pianist. I think that would be a great like stretch for him. It'd be interesting. You know, everyone from the Glass Onion, just totally put them in here. It totally works. You know, Donald Glover could be good in this cast.
Mm-hmm.
I just like him in everything. What's the Fleabag lady? She's good.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
I'm just typing likable actors. Let's see a list. Okay, we got Tom Hanks.
You
Tom
know?
Hanks, you know what?
Tom Hanks 20 years ago could have been Walter.
Tom Hanks 20 years ago could have been Walter.
He would have been Walter, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, the problem is there's just too many actors now.
No, I agree.
you know what I mean?
I unless they're in Marvel movies, I feel like I don't know anybody anymore.
Agreed. You know?
Yeah, we play the movie game, and I feel like I'm always going back to like the Lord of the Rings, like early
Always.
2000s, 2010s, and now I'm not too
Yeah.
familiar with.
The problem is
People who
also
would
all
be
these
young.
all these characters are all very like, they're all very profile specific. They're all like, their like ethnicities and creeds and sexual orientations all have to be honored too.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know where most people stand. So
That's
that like
true.
takes research. So that's like a
Yeah,
casting director's job.
yeah.
Don't mean to poo-poo on this. Okay, so let me see. 20 some, how old are these people? 30 somethings?
I don't know. It's so hard because I feel like every time I look, it's like these young kid actors that in my brain are still children are like, they're 20 something. Like the kid that's playing Shazam in the new Shazam movie, he's a 20-year-old man who just becomes an older man. Like it just, it's
That's
weird now. Everyone's aged up.
Ooh, Andrew Garfield is Walter. How about that?
Oh, okay. Andrew Garfield is very likable and charming.
He'd be a good Walter.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at actors in their 30s.
Hell yeah.
Is what I'm looking at. Donald Glover's here. Yeah, I agree with that. The problem is a lot of these
Jim
actors are
Parsons.
white. The problem is a lot of these actors are white men on this list,
That's
and
fair.
I need non-white.
Zachary
male
Quinto
actors.
as Walter.
That's good. He's a little older now, though.
He is older.
Grant Gustin. Put him in this movie. I don't know who. Gosh, this is too hard. I need
This
time.
is too hard. I'm looking at
gonna work on
actors
this.
now, and I'm not doing a good job.
Well,
The cast. Just grab the cast of Stranger Things. Grab the young cast from Yellow Jackets. Grab them all and figure out which ones fit in the characters. Throw them in there.
I don't know why. This we do this all the time. I don't know why this one's like especially difficult. I think again, it's just like these characters are so specific.
I think it's the age thing too.
Yeah.
Everyone I'm thinking of would be too old for the role.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
50 popular actresses in their 30s. Oh, this is Elizabeth Olsen as the consultant lady.
Okay.
Seems good.
Mm-hmm.
That one's good. I'll stand by that one. Gosh, I don't know who else though.
Yeah.
Again, now all this list of actresses are all white. The internet sucks.
This is the problem. It's not our problem. We're not wasting everyone's time right now. What we're trying to point out is that there's a systemic issue where we're trying to find lists of good actors and they're all white, and we're trying to not cast an entirely white cast of people because the characters are not white.
Honestly, 100%. The problem is Hollywood, not us.
Yes,
I stand by that.
Yes,
and that's where we're gonna
Hell
leave the
yeah.
segment.
Sex education people or Abbott Elementary people, throw them in there too. We
100%.
got it.
100%. All right, Marcus. Anything else you'd like to say about the nice lake house on the lake?
The nice house on the lake. No, nothing else I want to say.
Nice lake house on the lake. Yeah.
Nothing else
That's what I
I
said.
want to say.
Great.
Nick,
Yeah.
I got a couple of questions for you. But before we get to those, I want to say that next week, this weekend, we are going to PAX. If you were listening live, that is the only way that you know we will be at PAX. So if you see us, come say hi. But also, next week, we are going to do PAX /Scream 6 because we're going to spend a weekend together in a way that I feel like we haven't in years. And it's going to be fun. And it's going to be great. And we're going to have a good time. Since we're going to be in person, we're going to celebrate that and make the podcast celebrate that as well.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. All right, Marcus, get us out of here.
Wait, I have a couple questions for you. Not wait,
Right,
I'm getting us out of here. Podcast. Thank you.
Oh, hey, Mortar, you're here just for the end of the podcast.
Hell yeah, let's go.
and
Maybe they were
watch
here the whole
the
time.
beginning.
Nick,
That's true.
question one.
Yeah, I'm here. What's the question?
Did you like The Nice House on the Lake?
Loved it. Love this comic. Everyone should read. That's not the question yet. Sorry. I loved it. It was great. I wish
It's a victory for me.
I gave myself like 2 weeks to read it.
Mm.
It was a very nice house on the lake.
It was a
very
nice house on the lake.
Mhm.
Okay, Nick, would you recommend Nice House on the Lake?
Yes.
I was building suspense. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. I've already told my girlfriend to read it. I already told Nikki to read it. I'm going to tell everyone I know that reads comics to read it. I'm scared to lend out my copies, but I probably will because I really want people to read it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Nick, finally, last question. If we are lucky to get more issues of Nice House on the Lake, would you read it?
Dude, I was so sure when you made it imply that we might not get a sequel. I don't, you saw my face. I
Yeah.
was flabbergasted because clearly there's going to be more, and clearly I'm going to read it. There has
Okay.
to be.
I
I will
mean,
be forever disappointed if we don't get more because
structurally,
it ends
there is
cycle
more.
1.
No, 100%. Like there is more coming.
And I gotta
Business
believe it.
wise,
I gotta believe it, man.
it can't be certain. That
To
there's
answer your
more
question,
coming.
Marcus, yes, I will be reading the next cycle.
Okay, let's put it out into the universe, or it could be a Game of Thrones thing, and he's just working on it forever.
That sucks. I don't like that.
It's
All
probably
right,
not
guys,
true.
thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast. Please leave us reviews wherever you're watching, comment, like, all those great things. But if you really want to become part of the conversation, suggest us things every month and then vote on the things that we do every month. Go ahead and go to patreon.com/nowtrythiscast. Become a patron. Just costs $1 to start getting voting power. We have a Discord. We would love for you to join us. Come on and hop on over to Patreon.
Let's go. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know where all this energy is coming from. I feel like the Mad Libs really powered me through
Yeah, you're ready.
the rest
I'm
of the
done.
episode. Thank you so much for joining us. If you joined us live, we love you. If you didn't join us live, we love you just a little bit less. Remember to go out there and try some things. Good night.
Good night. We love you. I promise.
Friends get together so they can try things. How about it? It's podcast so that you can try things. Now we will stop singing so that we can all now try this.
But I was like,
Recording my audio.
sometimes I'll wear my sleeping clothes on the podcast and then I have to make clips. And I'm like, I regret wearing my sleeping clothes.
Sure. Now I feel like I should be better dressed.
No, you look great.
I'm not matching your vibe.